Lecture 4, Testing with Consumers and Users. I have seen countless innovations go off the rails due to improper use of consumer, user, and market research intended to guide the development of an innovation and predict its success. Sadly, in too many cases, this work was left to amateurs totally unqualified to do it. Unless it's done right, it can grossly mislead you and result in disaster with your innovation. The things I'm going to cover in this lecture are the differences between qualitative and quantitative research, how the use of lousy rating scales invariably led to lousy data, how innovators have used incorrect user bases to test their innovations. First, I want to comment on focus groups, which are known as qualitative research, and compare them to quantitative research. The most abused research tool I've ever seen is the focus group. Don't get me wrong, they have their strengths and they deserve a prominent place in the portfolio of user feedback. However, I've seen some very promising innovations fail in the marketplace because of their misuse. Some years ago, I was called in to consult on a very promising medical device. The intended purchasers were consumers as opposed to hospitals or professionals. The company had done extensive focus groups showing this device was a runaway hit with its users. However, it was failing miserably in the marketplace. They did not understand why. What the company sorely missed was this device was used in the treatment of a very sensitive human disorder. Many patients who really needed this device were totally uncomfortable talking about it in a room full of people. As I reviewed the transcripts in every focus group, only 1 or 2 people spoke out, and they loved it. But at least 3/4 of the groups said almost nothing in the course of 2 hours. As it turns out, these people had serious reservations about the device, which translated to a marketing disaster. So when do you use focus groups? I always say don't use them to decide anything. They are brilliant in looking at concepts, prototypes, determining which way the wind is blowing if they're conducted correctly. In the disaster I mentioned before, the company needed to have one-on-one interviews with users, probably conducted by a doctor or a nurse, to make users feel comfortable. They had distorted the purpose of a focus group by using it to determine purchase intent. I told the owners of that company if they had done 10 one-on-one interviews, they would have completely redesigned the device, and it could have been a runaway market success. Sadly, they had burned through their 3rd round of financing and closed their doors. So what is quantitative research, and what is it good for? When do you use quantitative research? When you need to precisely determine the acceptance and performance of a product or service. This is the decision-making kind of research that can make or break the future of an innovation. But what can go wrong? Well, a lot, of course. Let's say you've come up with a new blood pressure measuring medical device. Let's assume its purchasers are consumers who will find it at a pharmacy. So we're going to recruit a whole bunch of these consumers and let them use the device and give them a questionnaire with rating scales. Here's a common rating scale I see. Here the consumer has a choice between excellent, very good, good, neutral, and poor. I can't tell you how many times I've received this kind of rating scale in user surveys on goods and services I have purchased. What's wrong with this scale? Well, think about probability theory. This scale has 3 positive choices, excellent, very good, and good. It has neutral, and then it has only 1 negative choice, poor. Based strictly on probability, there is only a 1 in 5 chance of the user giving this product a poor rating. This is a completely unbalanced scale and will deceive you as an innovator. Here's an example of a balanced 5-point scale. You'll see the way the questions are set up, with equal probability of positive and negative responses, with the midpoint of neither like nor dislike. These types of scales lend themselves to statistical analysis. A numerical score is assigned to each rating, with like extremely given a 5, dislike extremely given a 1. If 100 patients try the blood pressure monitor and the average rating is 4.5, you know you have a product that's very well liked. These kinds of scales can be built out to 7 and 9 points to give more richness in your data. Here's an example of a 7-point scale asking the question, how easy is the medical device to use? Again, you'll see there's an equal chance of positive or negative results. Using these kinds of tools, statistical analysis is straightforward. You can determine the means and standard deviations of scores and look at the distribution of the data. You can use these kinds of scales to compare your product to competitors. In some cases, as few as 30 respondents is adequate to get preliminary data that is useful in setting direction. Finally, it's imperative you understand who the users of your innovation will be. Some innovators misjudge this and don't see the true potential of their innovation or how it will be used in real life. Choosing all of the relevant users of an innovation and running research among them is critical in refining the innovation and predicting its success in the marketplace. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned for my next lecture, where I'm going to tackle something we don't normally discuss in the world of innovation: honesty.